Purple Heart Homes presents Putting the Pieces Back Together, a forum for veterans and the community to connect. Here are your hosts, veterans John Galena and Brad Borders.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to Putting the Pieces Back Together. We are happy to be here with you today. And, man, what a beautiful day it is, and what a great guest we got today. Really excited about the show.
It's going to get colder this weekend. It looked like we're going to be in the teens Sunday morning when we get up. And don't forget, you got to throw your clocks forward. It's my least favorite time change of the year.
Oh, it's my favorite. Makes the days longer. Yeah,
it actually doesn't make the days longer. Actually, the sun, right, and the tilt of the earth, right, that actually makes the days longer. It's not our manipulation of the clocks.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, but the first day where you think it's 7 in the morning, but it's actually 8, that is a brutal. That's a brutal thing.
Yeah, the first day of the time change is always really tough.
Yeah, it messes my wife up too, and she.
But not everybody likes getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning like you, chap.
Well, that's true. I don't like it. I just do it.
Yeah, so I like getting up about the time the sun comes up.
Right. That's the problem with the time changes, because the sun is not coming up at the same time. It's not synchronized with my clock, and so it just completely messes me up. Holler at me if you think if you feel congruent with all of that.
Let's weigh in and have a public debate on this issue.
Let's have a public debate. Call us. Our call-in number, we'll take calls after the bottom of the hour, 704-873-1400. And we're live here on WSIC AM.
And let's give a shout-out to our sponsors, Cook's Headers, who we had George on the show here recently, Junior, cool, as he's affectionately known. Yeah. And great show. And, I'm kind of starting to get interested in electric cars now that gas prices are going up.
Yeah,
and
right.
I watched this video that they can actually do burnouts with electric cars. So
they got a lot of torque, right? Yeah. I mean, like the Teslas can go 0 to 60 faster than most production internal combustion cars.
But they don't sound like a monster V8 with Cook's headers.
Did you know this? So there's been a problem with electric cars like being so quiet that they like run over pedestrians, and pedestrians can't hear them. So that now they're like putting simulated sounds in the electric cars so that you can hear them.
It'll never be the same. It'll never be the same. I will never get rid of my V8. Well, I don't care if I have to distill my own alcohol to make it run. I'll never get rid of my V8. Shout out to Welcome Home Vets, Lake Mountain Coffee, and our fellow friend and veteran, Dr. Grant Campbell. Appreciate everybody's support.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for all our listeners out there.
Really appreciate it.
So we got some interesting stuff to start with this day in history.
The biggest thing that happened to people that live in North Carolina that are North Carolina fans.
This isn't history yet. We can't talk about
it. It is
this
history.
Yet.
It is absolutely history because it happened on Saturday night.
But Carolina Tar Heels. 3 days ago doesn't count as history.
Yes, it does, right? Because it happened in the past. North Carolina beat Duke on Coach K's final game at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And if you've been following the Tar Heels as long as some of us have since the Phil Ford era and Mitch Kupchak and all of those cats, Dean Smith and Roy Williams and now Hubert Davis, it was huge. It was huge. I laughed for an hour.
So wait a minute. They went through 3 coaches and they only beat them once in 41 years?
No, you don't even pay attention. You may know V8 motors, but you don't know anything about basketball. If you've lived in Skip, tell us about this, right? I mean, this is a big deal, right?
Yes,
Skip, are you a Duke fan or are you a Carolina fan?
I'm a Carolina
Thank
fan.
you so much. I knew he was going to be a great guest,
yes,
right?
Indeed.
It is such a huge win, right? So Roy Williams, his last game, coached at the Dean E. Smith Center. They beat Duke his last home game. Dean Smith, when he coached his last home game, they beat Duke, and Coach K lost. So I don't dislike Coach K like as a person, but I'm just not a Duke fan.
You're just for the rivalry.
It's ingrained in me. It's a deep-seated. It's Hatfields and McCoys, man. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now we still have coffee with our friends from Duke, but when it comes to Duke, Carolina, that's it. It is war. It's just like, unconventional warfare. So, anyhow, way to go, Tar Heels.
Well, before we get into some real history, I got a little joke again for us today.
Oh, gosh. All right,
everybody
get ready.
Since how you're in a laughing mood, I think this one might help make you laugh some more.
All right, everybody get ready.
How about a Briton, a Frenchman, and a Russian were standing and staring at a portrait of Adam and Eve?
All right.
Look at their calm, their reserve, says the Briton. Surely they must be British. Nonsense, replies the Frenchman. They are beautiful. Surely they must be French. And then the Russian finally speaks. He says, "They have no clothes, no shelter, only an apple to eat, and they are being told this is paradise. They are Russian."
No, yes. All right. Yeah. You said that you told that joke to yourself, and you laughed by yourself when you
All the
told
way
that
here.
joke all the way here. And I'm just wondering, all right, if you want to comment on Facebook, if that made you laugh at home, please let John know so that you can affirm him and his self-esteem can go up for the rest of the day.
In the sense of military humor,
Right.
with everything that's going on in the world, we have to poke a little bit of fun at the travesty that's happening in Ukraine with the Russians right now. And it is truly terrible what is going on there.
It is awful.
And I find that, as we said this in the past, that, history often repeats itself. And when it doesn't, it rhymes, as a famous author once said. But in 1982, the U.S. accuses the Soviets of killing over 3,000 Afghans with poisonous gas.
Yep.
We've been here before.
Yeah.
The Russians have been aggressive, and in so many ways, it is really sad to hear everything that's going on over there. And proud of those from Ukraine that are standing up and fighting and holding their own for their country and for their freedoms.
Yeah, this crisis
that's what it's about.
It didn't start in the last 2 weeks. This has been going on for a long time.
Very long time.
So, it's troubling, and we're hoping that peace will break out instead of war, and we're hoping that things will be resolved and people don't have to stop slaughtering one another. But today is a bad day again. So keep that whole country and that whole region in your prayers so it doesn't spread and more death and destruction come to others. So
So a couple of points about history. This is actually Women's History Month.
Yep.
And a couple of highlights there. And during the Civil War, Sarah Emma Edmonds fought in the Civil War, distinguished, I might add, and had disguised herself as a man and received a government pension after her service.
No kidding.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. In 1972, Alma Dirk became the first U.S. Navy's female admiral, and she served with as a director of the U.S. Navy Nurse Corps from 70 to 75.
Mm-hmm.
In 1979, Brigadier General Hazel Johnson Brown became the first black chief of the U.S. Nurse Corps and the Army's first black female general. That was really awesome.
What year?
That's 1979.
1979. Well, that was a breakthrough.
Yeah, and so really cool history there. I think a lot to be proud of, and I know I can say whether it's my wife or all the other special women in my life, my mom, my many adopted moms, they have all strong character and great leaders in the community. I really appreciate them.
Well, we got some useless facts that happened on this day. In 1993, the show Beavis and Butthead premiered on MTV, for those of you that remember that, and I spent several useless hours watching that show. Babe Ruth signed his contract with the New York Yankees for $130,000 a year on this day. I think it was 1930. No, it was longer than that. I can't remember the actual year. But the Yankees GM said this. He said that no one would ever be paid more than Babe Ruth at $130,000 a year. So you can't even be. Like, if you're on the roster for a Major League Baseball team now, you make $130,000, in a month, right? Not in a year. So Babe would be mad if he knew what folks were getting paid to play baseball right now.
Yeah, but I wonder what the inflation rate difference would be.
I don't. Well, of course you're going to. I mean, so
well,
for everybody that know
numbers,
that
right?
John Galina's love language is not all things numbers, and you were already factoring that. When I was talking about that, you were already factoring inflation into what would $130,000 be today.
Well,
do you know
$4.20 gas prices versus 19-cent gas prices, I'd say that $130,000 is probably equal to about $13 million.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So the first stock car race was held on Daytona Beach in 1936. Now this was not NASCAR, but this was a bunch of dudes that I guess run liquor, and they decided to meet in Daytona and race on the beach. And
that's really how NASCAR got started, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All those guys up here in Wilkes County and running from the law and tuning their motors, kind of like you do. You're not running liquor, are you?
No, I'm not running liquor, but
good.
I like to think that it kind of got started when they were riding by somebody's house and they were on the front porch cheering.
They probably were.
They loved it.
Yeah,
they loved it.
And 1965, first U.S. combat forces arrive in Vietnam. In Da Nang, and in 1971.
Hang on one second.
Go ahead.
1965 in Da Nang. Just a shout out to a friend and fellow veteran, Lieutenant Colonel retired John Headley.
Oh, John,
who hangs out down at Welcome Home Vets and is the chairman, president of Welcome Home Vets nonprofit there at Richard's Coffee Shop. He wrote a book called Saddle Up: The Story of the Red Scarf. John led a unit there in Da Nang in 1965 and had a number of losses, of course, but a number of victories there. And just a really great book and great story. And you can find that book online. It's Saddle Up, again, The Story of the Red Scarf.
Yeah.
And really interesting group.
If you want to meet John, you just go down to Richard's Coffee Shop in Mooresville on Thursday, and he's there every week. Looking after his brothers and sisters who've served, and pretty awesome place to go. So check that out. So, and I guess I finally, in 1971, Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali had a 31 streak of victories, 31 fight streak, and Frazier whooped him there. And nobody thought he was going to be able to do it because Ali had already beaten Frazier, right? Nobody thought Frazier was going to. Boxers rarely come back and beat the guys, especially a younger guy like Ali was at the time.
Sort of like Carolina and Duke, right?
Carolina won. That's all I know. That's a very short memory, man. Hey, ACC tournament's coming up. Everything could change. And Duke's had a really good year, and we hope that they do really well in the tournament as long as they don't play Carolina, and then we hope they lose. So. Hey, I want to say a shout out to Terry Joyner, who works with us at PHH at Purple Heart Homes, and Terry I think this month is his 5-year anniversary working with us. He came on in 2017, and we're really excited. Terry's a great coworker. He's growing and developing as a leader, and then has kind of taken up this mantle of leading an effort to do some work in South Statesville with community development and bringing people together to make sure some of the neighborhoods that have been neglected down there and the kids that have been neglected. He's doing mentoring with young kids, and so we're so proud of him and all the work that he's doing. And so thank you, Terry Joyner, for just being the guy that you are.
Yeah, it really goes a little beyond just Statesville. It goes down into Charlotte and some other surrounding communities where, they're dealing with some of the same problems. And I know Terry's had a heart for community service and helping others for a long time now. And really kind of what sparked this was a shooting it was a drive-by shooting where a young girl was killed.
Yeah.
And Terry organized a group of men and women and included many police officers and first responders do some work for the family, and there was a number of other family members that were injured, and he has not stopped. Every day I hear about something that he is doing in the community, and it goes so much beyond just Purple Heart Homes and helping veterans, but it's a culture that so many of our team members carry, that they just want to be out and serve and help others live their best life.
Yeah, and they've done some amazing things. They had a big cookout and a kickball tournament, and they've got they're putting on a formal for kids that have never been to a formal, where they can get dressed up and come and dance and have punch and all that stuff, and so they're putting that together, and they've got a lot of plans, but they meet all the time and talking about ways that they can make a difference. And so what a privilege to be able to serve with somebody like Terry. So
yeah, absolutely
cool.
Let's get to our guest. He
Let's
is certainly more interesting than my
us.
joke and
Yeah, definitely.
and this day in
Definitely.
history because he's alive and right here with
That's
us.
right.
Proud to have him here with us. Skip McCall, not only a veteran but a community leader in so many different organizations and so many different ways here over the many years that I've had the privilege of knowing you. And so just thank you for joining us on the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your service, Skip? Kind of how you started there in the Army.
Okay. Well, thank you. Certainly it's glad to be here with you this morning.
Yeah, we're glad you're here, too.
Certainly I started my Army service in 1971. Actually, I had graduated from Statesville High School and went on to college at North Carolina Central. And unfortunately, I ran out of money. And actually had to drop out of college and go to work to try to make some money and hopefully get back into school. My family was certainly lived in South Statesville, as we refer to it now. Mm-hmm. But actually, when I was growing up there, it was named Rabbit Town.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So certainly after dropping out of college, went to work, and I didn't go back that second semester, which was January. And when I went to work, it was actually before the end of January that I received my draft notice. Fortunately, that was really a blessing that I didn't realize when it actually happened. But I did. I received my draft notice and went into the Army in 1971. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I have a father and 4 brothers who all volunteered for the service and went into the Army. But I didn't have military wasn't on my radar. I was planning to go to school and just go into a career. Mm-hmm. But military wasn't on my radar. But I went into the Army and went to Fort Jackson for basic training. From there, I went to Fort Sill for my advanced training. And then
What was your MOS? I mean,
82 Charlie. 82 Charlie was artillery surveyor.
Another artilleryman.
King of battle, all the way.
That's right. Certainly, I was a surveyor and laid the big guns, 105s and 155s.
Mm-hmm.
I see we served on 155s. And, Chap, let me just say, if you can't be Air Force like Isaiah,
Right.
then you got to be artillery.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later.
So, when I got into the Army, I was scared. I mean, really scared. Even though I had all my brothers and my dad who had that experience, but I was really, really scared. Went in April of 1971. Went through basic, then certainly AIT. And actually, that was a difficult time because my father passed away while I was in AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And that was tough. Came home from my father's funeral and then went back to finish up my AIT. And I already had a brother in Vietnam, and he came home for the funeral. Mm-hmm. And he had such a short time left in Vietnam that they did not send him back to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So I finished my AIT and went on a week of leave. And the next thing I know, I was ordered to go to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Vietnam and spent actually 10 months in Vietnam, and certainly I was stationed with the 101st Airborne Air Mobile Division. Even though I was with the division, I was not jump qualified. I started to, but something told me that it's a little high up there, so I didn't follow through on that. When I got to Vietnam, I came in at Cameron Bay, and had some orientation there, and then I was sent out for additional orientation, and then got actually stationed at camp up around about 25 miles from the DMZ in Phu Bai. And in Phu Bai, I worked with Colonel Bleecker, and I worked in fire support. Actually, I spent a lot of time in a bunker, just monitoring things and, waiting for a fire mission. And that was kind of interesting. It really was. And I liked working with Colonel Bleecker and all the guys there, and it was a lot of fun until we start to receive incoming.
Yeah, right.
That really done away with the fun. But we just we knew exactly what to do, so we would climb into the bunker and wait until that incoming was over. But that was really scary. Again, this was something new to me. I was only 19, actually just turned 20 when I went to Vietnam. And I was really scared.
Yeah.
But after a while, you kind of settle in and just make adjustments. I prayed a lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And asked the good Lord to please be with me.
Yeah.
And bring me back safe and sound. And he answered my prayers.
Yeah.
So that was a really great experience. I spent 6 months with the 101st Airborne Division. And the 101st got stood down. And they started to head back to the States. Fortunately, again, I call it fortunately, but I had not had enough time in Vietnam at that point. And so I was transferred to another company, it was actually in Chu Loy, which was down south, not too far outside of Saigon. And that was different because there in Chu Loy was a different kind of service there. They had, when I got down there, we had just had a fire base that had been overrun. And several of our people got killed on that fire base and wounded. And so they were rounding up us to send us out to reinforce that fire base. And I really got scared. I was with the 2nd 11th Armored Cav Division there, and I was really scared. And we had loaded up, getting ready to head to the fire base. And the captain came by, and he says, hey, look, is anybody on that truck that can type? So we got a lot of paperwork that needs to be done with all that happened out there on that fire base. And so when he asked that question, I jumped sky high off that truck.
I can type.
Yes, I can type.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had learned to type in the 8th, 9th grade.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was great. And I went out, with the captain, and started working with him. But certainly, you had your work to do, but then you had your duty.
Yeah.
And you still had to pull perimeter duty and
Sure.
guard duty and
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
all of that. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Skip, we're at that time for a quick little break.
Okay.
Got to pay for the show. We appreciate our sponsors. We are live here from WSIC News Studios. Please stay live with us on Facebook. We'll be talking about a book that Brad is currently reading and leading us through with Reboot. And we look forward to learning more and hearing more from Skip McCall when we return.
Hey, thanks, Skip.
Great. I could listen to you for hours.
Yeah,
That
man,
is
that's
really
awesome.
great.
Hey,
Really
so
great.
for those that are still here on Facebook, we're still live here. I'm going to try to.
Yeah, I just want to
get
add
mine.
something here real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Skip's saying it just I can't help but think of as I hear you and listen to you. I recall one of our generals giving his pre-war speech. We were doing our deployment ceremony in Greensboro, and one of the things that stood out to me that he said was that war was 95% boredom and 5% sheer hell. And I found that to be so true. And over the years,
Yeah.
as I've talked to countless numbers of veterans, I've heard repeated much of what you said in the sense that, you know, there was a lot of scary times. There was a lot of times that I was scared, and there was a lot of times that I had to pray, and I don't know how I got through it other than by God's grace. And I think that is truth, and that is truth for all of us. That
Yeah.
you know, you more often than not aren't expecting those immediate scary times.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Absolutely.
that really describes it. There were times, and a lot of times, that you're just, you know, having fun playing cards. We played cards a lot. We even had Bob Hope.
No kidding.
At that time,
Yeah.
he came to
USO
to
tour.
Fubai,
Yeah.
on his USO tour.
That is really
and
cool.
That was really, really cool.
See, you got
I mean,
Bob Hope. We got like the Bass man. The Bass Pro Shop fella come over, and it was great. He talked about fishing, but I'd have much rather seen Bob Hope.
Oh yeah.
We got Trace Hombres or somebody like that they came and sang or something. Then we had an AC/DC cover band.
Oh yeah,
They came and did a USO tour. They were pretty. I mean, it was better than the other band we had, which was nobody. So
Well, we just got a couple minutes left in our break,
Yeah.
chap, and we're talking about being scared and talking about trauma. And
Yep.
What you doing to
yeah.
help us with that?
So on Tuesday nights at Purple Heart Homes, we for the last year we've been really for the last 5 years we held Reboot Combat Recovery here at Western Avenue Baptist Church, and now we teach it at Purple Heart Homes. And so what we're doing now is we've got about 20 veterans that are showing up every Tuesday night. We're doing this thing called Reboot Advance, and Reboot Advance is sort of a deep dive on trauma recovery, and Reboot is a faith-based approach, a Christ-centered approach to recovering from the wounds of war, and so we are having a great time. We've got folks that listen to the show that are coming to it, Dave Childers and James Hamby and among others, and so
Chap,
we're really excited that they're all
to,
coming.
You came to Purple Heart Homes just after coming off active duty.
Yep.
And you were in the process of starting this program here in Iredell County, Reboot Combat Recovery.
Yep.
And your first visit to Purple Heart Homes was to basically get Dale and I to join. And
Yeah,
come
yeah,
to
and then
class.
y'all didn't come, right? But you hired me.
Yeah, so
I
instead
got a
we just
job,
like,
but I
let's-
couldn't get you in the class.
Let's just bring him on board. He's got great culture, but I'm not going to that class.
Right, I'm not going to that class. And so for 5 years, I've been, every time we have it, I go, John, you coming tonight? You coming tonight? Oh, yeah. No, I can't make it. And then finally last week, John comes to his first class in 5 years, right, which is awesome, right? I'm glad to have him there. So hope you learned something.
20 seconds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
It's a joy being there
Yeah,
with
it is
so
good.
many other great
We'll be there
fellow
tonight, so
veterans.
y'all pray for us tonight. So we're getting ready to go back live here on WSIC. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.
All right, we are back with you here at Putting the Pieces Back Together, live at WSIC News Studios with veteran Skip McCall.
And still basking in the glow of the Tar Heels victory over the weekend.
Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. If we're getting callers about the Tar Heel basketball game,
please
I'm
call.
not sure.
Yes.
But we do have our first caller here, and you can call in live. We'll be taking calls the bottom half of the hour here at 704-873-1400, and we will go to our first caller.
Who we got on the line?
This is Michael Anthony.
Hey, Michael. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to call and give a big shout out to Mr. McCall, Skip. I met him out at J.C. Penney. He had the wisdom to hire this old boy. I was had just gotten laid off at one job and desperately needed to get going on another. Mom said, well, let me see if I can talk to Skip McCall. And she got me an interview with him, and he hired me to unload the trucks in the PEPS facility. And I did that for a few months, 6 or 8 months. And then I got a full-time job out in the cut order fabric department. And then I got into management in quality control and started traveling in North Carolina, South Carolina, and half of Georgia. And but anyway, it was all because Skip gave me a chance to come and unload trucks.
That's awesome.
And man. I just, when I heard he was going to be on the show, I said, well, I definitely got to try to call in.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. All right, guys, we appreciate all what you do at Purple Heart, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. There you go.
Sir. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
That's a good testimony, Michael. Skip. Yeah.
Yes, it is, and I appreciate that very much. My goodness, working at J.C. Penney's, I worked there for 20 years.
Yeah, actually,
and some great people. I mean, really, some super people, and even though I was HR manager and. But I made a lot of friends. Being an HR manager, sometimes it's very difficult to make friends.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I did, and my thing was that I always treated people like people.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
And I always tried to do the best that I could do for them. I was a human resource manager, but I was an advocate for people, and that's the thing that really, I think just made me, it was all about people.
Yeah.
And I believed in treating people the best that I could, because when you treat them with respect and let them know that you care about them, and not only them, but their family, people give their best to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
really.
Right.
And so...
Did your time in the military, serving with the 101st and in Vietnam, would you attribute a lot of those values to, I'm sure it had to do with your family and how your mom and daddy raised you and all that, but did that inform that kind of culture, what you learned in the military? Did that carry over into your civilian career?
Oh, yes. I had two certainly working at J.C. Penney's was a great experience that really helped me to understand the value of people and the value of caring for people. My first experience of learning that was my senior year at Statesville High School. I had gone to a black school all the way through the 11th grade, and in the summer before I started my senior year is when the courts ordered desegregation.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I had very little interaction with the white community, very little. I had our paper boy was a white guy. What we call the rag man was a white guy that came through the community, and we had a guy that came through to deliver fruit and sell watermelons and that kind of thing. But beyond that, I had very little interaction with the white community. And Statesville High School was that really first opportunity. And I had a real experience there. The first, like I say, the senior year, we got there at Statesville High School, and it was very uncomfortable initially. But I always ventured out because I always wanted to meet people and get to know people, and I did. And people got to know me. And that school year was tough, challenging, but we made it through simply because some of us, we came together, got to know each other, and started to understand how to respect each other.
Yeah.
And that is really what helped me to understand, again, the value of people and the value of respecting people and treating them like people.
Right.
As far as color of skin or gender or that, those things, it really didn't matter to me.
What year was that? That was the first year of desegregation here in Statesville. Was what year was that?
Yeah, the courts ordered desegregation in 1968, the summer of 1968.
Right. So the fall of '68, you went from, I guess you were at Morningside, was the school you were at before, right?
Yes,
yeah,
I went to
and then
Morningside.
went to Statesville.
Yeah, and then finished that senior year at Statesville, and then from there went on to school.
Yeah.
But that year at Statesville was really challenging.
Yeah.
But when I look back on it, it was a major experience.
Yeah.
I almost got thrown out of school at Statesville.
Really?
Yeah, I really did. We had there were some people who were just cordial and nice. Most of the people were, but there were also some the people who didn't want blacks to be there, and certainly there were some blacks who didn't want to be there.
Right.
And one day there was a group of us black boys standing in the auditorium, just talking, shooting the breeze during lunchtime. And a group of white boys came in on the other side of the auditorium and lit us up with ice balls.
Oh, heck.
And I saw this one kid who threw an ice ball. I saw it leave his hand, and it was coming directly at me. And I became petrified. And that ice ball hit me dead in the chest. He took off out the door on the side that he was at. And so I took off out the door on the side I was, hoping that we would run into each other coming around the building.
Right.
And actually, that happened. We ran right into each other. And I did. I just grabbed him. But thank God, Mr. Hyatt, Mr. Albert Hyatt,
Oh, yes.
who was the principal,
Right.
he saw everything that happened.
Right.
When we took off running, he did too.
Right.
And he caught me, and he grabbed me. He said, "Don't do that."
Right.
And took me to his office, and
We had to go to the principal's office.
Yeah, we did. And we sit down and started talking. And he and I and another friend of mine, Arnold Feemster, we had some dialogue, talking to each other and sharing our thoughts and feelings with each other. And that was amazing. As a matter of fact, after that day, we met several times to talk and try to understand what we were dealing with along with what the white students were dealing with, and how we was going to make it through that year.
It's amazing how what kind of impact a leader can have to help you understand varying perspectives.
Oh, yeah. I tell you, it is. And really, after all we went through that year, I was selected as Mr. Statesville High School at the end of the year.
How about that?
And I never will forget, we had an assembly. Mr. Hyatt come to me one day. He said, "You know what? we need to have a student assembly. And I told him, I said, that sounds pretty good. And he said, the only thing is that I don't know who's going to speak. And I told him, I said, well, Mr. Hyde, you're the principal. I think you should speak. And he said, well, I don't know. He said, I really don't know what to say to those students. And he looked at me. He said, you know what? He said, I think you ought to speak. And I told him, I don't know what to say. And he said, just tell the students what you have been telling me when we've talked.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so we had student assembly, and I got up and just really spoke from my heart. And my goodness, it was amazing. When I ended, students started, some of them were crying, and some of them was even hugging each other and apologizing.
Wow.
And after that, things settled down and smoothed out. And we got through the rest of that year.
That is amazing.
And
what
graduated.
a cool story, man. I'm so
That
glad.
is-
I'm
is
so
really
glad
cool.
you shared that with us.
It's like
Don't we need more of that?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a convergence of good upbringing,
Yeah.
good leadership, some example, and good leadership, and
Well, when people start forgiving one another, and people start loving one another, and people start talking to one another and communicating with one another, really good things can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely when we start to talk with each other and dialogue and share our thoughts and feelings and being honest about what we think and what we feel, only then can we really start to heal.
Well, and that had
the
to be.
divide.
And I know you went on. You've been involved with the NAACP and so many other civic organizations, leadership, and the Chamber of Commerce and board of directors and that kind of thing. But that experience of getting that platform when you're 17, 18 years old had to be kind of a watershed moment for you to realize when you saw that happen. You were like, hey, that had to be deeply ingrained in you. What could possibly be?
Yes, it did, and I don't know. It seemed like that there's always been a calling for me to intervene in something that is just not happening right.
well, I would also say to inspire.
Yeah.
Right? You inspire so many other people. I can't imagine how many students were in that audience that day.
Oh, yeah.
How
it
many
was full.
folks that you served alongside with in the Army that, I heard you say you prayed a lot while you were there.
Oh, yeah.
And how many people did that inspire, right? That they saw your faith. And, then you come into J.C. Penney's and as Michael, our caller, stated just what you did for him. And how many people you in so many ways minister to in J.C. Penney's as an HR director, what that was like.
Yeah.
And so you've got all these experiences and coming up and moving in. You got great leadership examples. How did that stuff kind of evolve into your passion for serving the community?
Well, that's a good question, and I think I have a good answer for that. Is that, as I said, I grew up in South Statesville.
By the way, before
Town.
you go there, I've got a question. What's the story behind Rabbit Town?
Okay.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of people around that grow up where we grew up have heard that, but not everybody knows what it means.
Yeah. South Statesville was certainly in South Statesville, and it was a poor community. I mean, we just faced that. But the people in the community had a love and a caring attitude for each other. I mean, it was really amazing. And what used to happen is that in South Statesville, there was a lot of woods where rabbits hung out.
Right.
And people would come over there to actually do hunting and kill rabbits and squirrels. And,
Right.
they go and fish out of the branch. And so somehow the rabbits stuck to become the name of the community.
Right.
Rabbit Town.
Right.
And then, as a matter of fact, all the areas in the black communities had names.
Right.
We had Rabbit Town, Sunnyside, Poplar Branch,
Right.
Newtonville, Belmont. I mean, that's that's the
Right.
way it just happened.
Right.
And my grandmother, Mom Bessie, was such a sweet, sweet woman, and she loved me, and I loved her, and she taught me a lot of the values that I developed. Really did. She cared a lot for me, and the thing is that I had an experience. I'm gonna share this. Is that she would take me with her to downtown Statesville, uptown Statesville actually was to us, and she would go shopping, and Statesville had a transportation system. There was a bus that would transport people back and forth, and so we would come up to the hard surface road because all the roads in Rabbit Town were dirt roads, and we would come up to catch the bus. And we get on the bus, and there was a glass container at the front where you drop your fare in. It wasn't but a nickel. I like those times to be back now.
Yeah, amen.
But it was, I was only 7 years old, and I was real intrigued watching that money fall down in that glass container. And so I would drop my money in, and I would want to stay up front and watch other people drop the money in the glass container. There was something very fascinating about that. Well, my grandmother would grab me right here by the back of my collar, and she'd tell me, come on here, boy, come on back here with me. And back here with me was at the back of the bus. And I would sit back there, and then there would be little white kids up front. They'd be wanting to do the same thing. It was interesting. And they would be up there playing and watching the money fall in that container. And I would sit back there and watch that, and I couldn't understand why they could do that, but I couldn't. And I started to think right then is that, my goodness, I don't ever want to see people be denied of things that are enjoyable and things that they like doing, and I make them happy. And that's something that stuck with me. And that's why I've never wanted to see people being mistreated.
Yeah.
I mean, I just something just goes through me when I see that, and it doesn't matter whether they're black or white or whatever. I just hate seeing people mistreated. And I pretty much have embarked on a life that I've fought so many battles and done so many things to protect people or to get them out of trouble, whatever it takes to give them opportunity to have a better life.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you doing
Absolutely.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
So share a little bit about what you're doing now, some of the work you're doing now.
Some of the work I'm doing now, and sometimes I retired. I've been retired for 5 years, and actually, when I retired, I was determined. I said, I'm gonna rest. I'm not gonna get involved in a whole lot of stuff. And I actually
How long that lasts? About a week?
It didn't last long enough, that's for sure. But yeah, I am busy. I know that one of the things I remember doing is when I went to college and then come back and to Statesville. Actually, I almost left Statesville 3 times. But every time it was like God said, "Nah, this is where you need to be." I'm telling you. So I just, I just wanted people to have the best that they could have.
Yeah.
And
At the you're doing some stuff with the museum.
Yeah,
and you did some stuff during Black History Month as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And that's what I've always enjoyed speaking to young people.
Yeah.
I go into schools a lot and just talk to them.
Yeah.
And I did a talk at Mitchell College. I did a talk on Black history at Mitchell, and I did a talk at the museum, which was growing up black in Statesville and Iredell County. And I have, there's a lot of experiences that I had. It was each one of those experiences taught me something. And whenever I talk to people or do a presentation, as a matter of fact, I quit J.C. Penney's after 20 years and actually went into my own consulting business. And that consulting business was providing training in the area of diversity and inclusion. And just train people, how to, first of all, respect, accept, and get along with each other. And I did that for 14 years.
Yeah.
So everything, I think that when I start to realize and understand that, developing people and me growing and helping other people to grow, that's what's needed in our community, in our country, and particularly right now. My God, we need that more than anything. Because if we don't realize that we are all human beings, and I tell people, I say I'm just part of I'm a one race person, and that is the human race.
Right.
Amen.
It has nothing to do with color or anything that make us different, and we have to understand that. We have to realize that and overcome the differences and become the people that God has intended for us to be.
Well, Brad, as we're starting to close in on the end of the show here, I got to say we've had a number of our guests that were on Thursdays when we had a 30-minute show, and that we said we want to bring some of these guests back.
Yeah.
While Skip could definitely fit the bill for the most interesting man, I like Mr. Statesville, and I think we're definitely going to have Mr. Statesville back because I've got dozens more questions.
Oh, my gosh, man. I wish we had 3 hours thank you so much for the stories are powerful, man. The story about the bus, man, that just that visual imagery for me. And I remember just stories from my parents, talking about my mom was a teacher at Statesville High School in desegregation, and so she's just a little bit older than you. She was a young out of college and teaching at Statesville High School, Miss Sarah was.
And as we didn't get to at least 5 of the questions we had here because you're just great stories and a great storyteller. Let me say that. I do want to give a shout out to an event you have coming up, and that's Juneteenth that'll be coming up that you're a part of and that you're helping to organize here in Statesville. It's been happening for the last couple of years here in our community, but really happens all over the country. And so you tell us just a minute about that, and then we'll be ready to close.
Sure. Yeah, we our organization, the Impact Incorporated, we actually came together and for the purpose of starting Juneteenth. And this is actually would have been the 27th year. We missed 2 years because of pandemic, but this will be the 27th year. And now Juneteenth has become a federal holiday.
Yeah.
And that's something that was our goal when we started this.
And so people can go to impact.org to learn more about that?
I tell you what, I brought you.
We'll put it in our show notes.
Okay.
We'll share that with
Right.
everybody.
So as we close, Chap, tell us about our next
man.
guest.
So next week, our friends Eric Hill and Zach Gregg, 2 professional bike racers that have they're involved with a nonprofit called Project Echelon that helps veterans recover and transition through the use of cycling to improve their lives, and we're really excited about having them
on here. And again, a
here.
special shout-out to all our sponsors. Thank you all. Thanks to all our listeners. And join us again next week. We'll be live on WSIC News Studios. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody.